Nebula Maker by Aloof Stapleton. So, my exploration of Stapleton continues. I've managed to get a copy of Nebula Maker, which is an unfinished work by Stapleton. It was published after he died, and it's a fragment of a manuscript, of the original manuscript. This is the first section of it, of what eventually became his magnum opus, Star Maker. But in many ways, Nebula Maker is so incredibly different to what is laid down in the eventual version that it can really just be considered its own independent work that very much so complements Star Maker, opposed to just being an earlier version of it. I mean, one of the things Stapleton talks about in Star Maker is the existence of other universes. So, really, if you did want to fit it into the Stapleton multiverse, so to speak, you could just argue that the events in this take place in a different universe to the ones explored, to the events explored in this one and in our universe, so to speak. Okay, so as a piece of written work, it's quite early on in Stapleton's career as a writer. I believe he wrote this alongside Odd John, or while he was writing. I can't be too sure, but I know it was quite early on. And it's not as polished or as matured. His writing style is not as matured as it is in his later work, such as in Sirius or later on in Star Maker. However, it does still have his trademark fort adventure tone to it. Let's just go completely off the scale and really be open-minded. And the tale is of the nebula clouds in the early universe, and Stapleton basically posits in this book that they are conscious living creatures. Only we don't see them as being conscious living creatures because their scale of time is spread out more so than ours. So whenever we look at nebula, they're just very slow moving blobs of cloud, but the nebula's reality is that slowness is just their everyday consciousness. It's their everyday time scale. And one of the ideas I love about this is the fact that their actions, their thinking, their interactions take place over millions of years. And so yeah, I mean, only Stapleton could make a cloud sentient and then make you believe it also. And also turn it into a great tragedy, because this is what this book is. It just details the nebula coming into existence, grappling with their own nature, grappling with each other. There's many parallels drawn between their nature and human nature in that they do go to war, they struggle to get along with their different groups, all based in the different galaxies. And ultimately, their downfall is not their own warlike nature, but just their purpose within the universe, which is to condense down into stars and matter and planets, and ultimately to form the terrestrial creatures such as us. So it is hugely tragic in that respect, but Stapleton doing what he does best, I think. The key thing about this book is it does begin exactly the same as Star Maker, with a chap going up a hill, which is clearly Stapleton going up a hill and just projecting himself into the cosmos, or at least that's how it is in Star Maker. In this one, he actually sees the face of God up in the sky beyond the stars. And unlike Star Maker, where we meet Star Maker, or God, if you want to call it that, at the end of the novel, we meet the Star Maker right at the beginning of the novel. And this outline of the Star Maker is very, very, very different to the outline laid down in this one. In many ways, this one is much more bleak. This one is less. Not that this one is hugely sympathetic, but this one is less so. And I know that Stapleton got some feedback on this draft about his conception of God, which made him alter it for this one. And I think also it just, because he would have been older when he put this one together, perhaps his worldview would have changed somewhat. Yeah, but this one is really just really an attack on the Star Maker and our own incomprehension and the incomprehension of the nebulae and their inability to understand what purpose this Star Maker has for the whole of existence, and while it is so incredibly cruel, at least from how they see it from their point of view. So yeah, I mean, it's not a particularly long work. It's about 130 pages. Yeah, it didn't take me long to finish it. It was a nice, short, stimulating read. I think it's just a shame that we never got to see the rest of this original manuscript, because as I mentioned, this is only the first part of it. This just details the nebula's evolution and story within the formation of the universe. I know Stapleton, just like Star Maker, his plan was to write a book that showed the life course of the whole universe, so this is only the first part of that. And considering how different this is to this one, it would have been interesting to see how different the later parts were as well. But I guess we're never going to find out. But I think we should just be thankful, though, that we do have the latter version, and we do have a bit of the initial version as well, because Stapleton he wrote so little. What he did write was brilliant and expansive, but ultimately you look at what he did write, and he didn't actually write a lot. So I think we should be thankful for what we do have, as produced by this great man. So yeah, so it's a nice light read. It's not as heavy as Star Maker, but there's some nice ideas in there. Nice tragic tale. Like all science fiction, or Stapleton's writing in particular, holds many parallels to our own history. Historical figures from our own history, such as Jesus and Stalin. There are two nebulae in there who are very similar to them, and it has a great deal to say about our political systems, our ideologies, and just our essential nature of trying to grapple with reality, what we are, why we're here, what is the universe, and if there is indeed a Star Maker. So yeah, it's a nice companion piece to Star Maker, but ultimately it can exist in and of itself as its own little self-contained novella. So I highly recommend it to anyone who's a fan of Stapleton.